Recently, I made a video that was over 3 hours long, having anything and everything to do with 16th century blackwork embroidery. What needles were used, how to dress a slate frame, what is a slate frame, what thread did they use, where to find the patterns. And so, since that was a very long video, over 3 hours, I did have chapters in it, but to make it easier, I have split that video into multiple videos, and here's one of those videos now. But before we get started, hello, my name is Lynn Fairchild, and welcome to my channel. And to help you with your blackwork embroidery journey, I have books on Amazon. Both of these have patterns in them that would have been found. This one has patterns specifically from the 16th century, whereas this one has patterns from both the 16th and the 17th century. I will have links below in the description.
So, slate frames. This wooden style of frame has 4 perpendicular sides with pegs or notches to help keep the fabric secure. Of the 4 perpendicular sides, there are 2 with mortises and 2 with tenons. A mortise is the hole that another piece of wood slides through. The tenon is a piece of wood being slid through the mortise, which is the hole. So if you look at the picture on the right-hand side, the mortise is the hole, so that would be the 2 bars that are on the top and the bottom. The sides have the holes in them, and then the tenons, those are the 2 that go up and down. So they go through the 2 that are vertical, horizontal. This type of frame can be fixed to trestles. It can have an independent foot, or it can be handheld. A slate frame helps to keep the fabric taut, which means it keeps it very tight, while it is being embroidered, which allows for even stitches and it does not warp the fabric. Here are a few examples of slate frames in history. On the left-hand side is an illumination from the 14th century, and it shows a slate frame being propped up with feet. And that is at the British Library. And on the right-hand side is a painting of the Virgin Mary with the child Jesus. Mary is using a tapestry slate frame, and the frame is fixed and set up on trestles. That painting is from 1440, and it's at the Bibliothèque in France. Here are a few more examples of slate frames. On the left is a slate frame. It has legs, and if you zoom in on the picture, you can also see it has the mortises as well as the plugs on the sides to keep it in the shape that it needs to be in. And that painting is from 1470. On the right-hand side is an etching, and that was etched in 1532 by Alessandro. If I mispronounced this, I'm sorry, please correct me. Paganino? Paganino. We'll go with that. But if you look in that etching, you will see where both women, they have the fabric taut. So you have the fabric, and then it gets sewn pretty much in a little zigzag crossing all 4 bars, and that's what holds the fabric both width and lengthwise, and then the pegs get put in the 4 corners, and that holds the wooden frame where exactly it should be. And if you look closely, you will see one lady has a candle underneath. She's using the candlelight to be able to see the holes, so she knows where to embroider. And then the lady on the right, she is actually using the windows, so she's using the daylight for her light to see where the holes were in the linen to embroider. Here are some more slate frames. On the left-hand side is an example of silk embroidery being done on a slate frame in 1568, and that is from a German book called if I mispronounced this, I'm sorry, the Standardbuch. On the right-hand side is a similar frame construction as we've seen in previous centuries, the same type of frame with the fabric stretched and then stitched onto the wooden frame, and then it's held up by trestles or by legs. And this is also a German engraving, and it is from 1698. Also the standard book, written by two different authors, two different centuries, but still the same type of embroidery frame. And more historical examples of slate frames. On the left-hand side is an engraving. It's by Jan, I will probably mispronounce this, Sweelink. It's from 1627, and it's called Stitcher with Cupid. And with this, if you look, it's a slate frame, but there are no trestles. She's just holding it, and it looks like Cupid is on the other side helping her hold it and helping her with the stitching. On the right-hand side is an example of a very large embroidery frame. Actually, there are two very large embroidery frames, and this is from 1770. If you look closely, you can see the one frame on the right-hand side is so large that there are two women sitting on either side of the frame doing the embroidery. And this is a large example of a slate frame being propped up by trestles. And more slate frames in history. On the left-hand side is a painting from 1720, and if you can see on the frame, again, she's got the fabric, and then it's stitched around on all four sides to hold the fabric in place and keep it nice and tight. On the right-hand side is a portrait of Madame de Pompadour, which was painted about 1763 to 1764. And although if you look, it looks like she might be using a slate frame or a scroll frame, which I'll get into scroll frames in a minute, it's actually been noted that she's doing tambour work on that frame. On the left-hand side is a very simple slate frame. It's very obvious it's a slate frame, and it's from about 1730. And this was done by Martin Engelbrecht. On the right-hand side of the screen is another slate frame, and this one is an engraving labeled Embroidery Lessons, and it was engraved in 1689. And here are some actual examples of embroidery frames rather than just simply looking at paintings. On the left-hand side is a mid-18th century embroidery scroll frame from France. It's housed in the Palace of Versailles. And if you look, you remember what I just mentioned about the legs being on either side. So your feet would be in the middle with the legs of the embroidery frame on either side of you. On the right-hand side it's also an 18th century, but it's a later 18th century embroidery slate frame from North America. It's in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and this one has the more iconic style that you see more in the 19th century with just a single leg holding up the embroidery frame. One of the differences between these two frames, if you look on the left-hand side, it's a scroll frame. You can see the toggles on the sides, where the screws are to loosen up the roller bar, roll your fabric on, and then roll it tight. On the right-hand side of the screen is just simply a slate frame with the mortises and the tenons. No particular order, the items that you will need for today, you will need pins, your fabric. I will be using linen fabric, scissors, thread. I'm also going to be using a thin yarn, but that's up to you if you want to use the thin yarn or only use the thread, a needle, bias tape, and obviously your slate frame. My slate frame is 15 inches by 15 inches, and as you can see, I'm using a scrap piece of fabric. So first I'm going to trim everything down to make sure that this fabric will fit onto my frame. Once you have your fabric square cut out, next you want to take your bias tape and you're going to cut 2 strips the same length as the fabric.
Next, you'll want to unfold the bias tape, and then you're going to line one on the right edge and then the other one on the left edge. So as you can see, I'm unfolding the bias tape, and I've got one corner up here and I'm pinning it down. Okay, one side done. Now time to pin the other side. Now that I've got both sides pinned, now it's time to take your needle and your thread, and you're going to sew up both sides. Right now I'm threading my needle. Now that I've got the thread doubled, I'm going to put knots in at the end of my threads. And with this, the stitches don't have to be neat, they just have to be secure. And to help secure the thread on the other side, I like to take my needle and stick it in between the two threads. And then pull it tight. From here, I'm just going to do a simple stitch just to secure the bias tape onto the fabric. Just like that. There is a fold. There's actually two folds, but there's a fold right here from where the bias tape had been folded, and I'm actually unraveling that fold, and then that's where my stitches are going. So I have a straight line to follow. And once you have one side stitched up, go ahead and knot your thread, and then get started on the other side. For the pieces of your slate frame, the two with the holes on the ends, these are called mortises, which would make these two the tenons. The tenon is the piece of wood that will go through the mortise, through the hole. And you want the two that have the tape already on there. And from here, I'm going to stitch these onto each other. So if you see, I'm matching up the edge of the fabric with the edge of the tape here. Now once you are done pinning right along here, now it's time to sew it into place. And from here, I am just sewing the fabric onto the tape. Once you're done sewing the one side, go ahead, knot off the end of the thread, and then get started on the other side. And now that this side is sewn on, time to pin it to the other side. Now, time to sew this side. Next, you want to slip the tenon through each. There's one, and here's the second one. Now you'll want to take your 4 pegs and put them in the holes to stretch the fabric. Once your pegs are secure in the holes and your fabric is stretched, I'm going to flip this frame over. And remember that thin yarn from before, you can also use string if you like. And I'm going to cut off a long piece here and thread my needle. And you want to tie it around one corner. What you're going to do is wrap the thread around the right leg and stick it through the bias tape. And then just keep doing that, and it will start to look like spiral lacing going up the leg. And if I can get my knot out, pulling it tight. And now as you go, you'll notice some of the string will start to relax. You'll want to pull it tight as you go up. And now as I come up to the end on the other corner, I'm going to do one more around the leg through the bias tape. And now, if you can see, I've got some loose string through here, so I'm going to go to the very bottom, make sure it's pulled tight, and tighten up each strand as I work my way up the leg. Now that I've done that, now I'm going to knot off this end, so I'm going to wrap it around the leg, there, around the corner, and I'm going to knot it again through the loop, through the middle, put my thumbnail over the knot, and then pull tight. And one more time, just for good measure. And now that my thread is knotted, your corner knotted off. Now you want to wrap the yarn around the leg through the bias tape and just do the same spiral lacing that you did before. And through the bias tape. As you can see, I'm at the other corner, but I've got some loose threads here, so you want to go back to the very beginning, pull tight, hold it in place, pull the next string, hold it tight, next string, and just work your way up. This will help make sure that your fabric, as you can see, it's getting tight like a drum. And once everything is nice and tight, then you just want to knot off this corner. And congratulations, you have dressed a slate frame. Thank you for checking out my YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this video and would like to watch more of my videos, please follow the links on the side of the page. Please select thumbs up that you like the video. It helps with the algorithm. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. And please click subscribe and ring the bell to be updated when new videos come out.